Vaishnavas, of the spiritual master, and of the past acharyas. Where the devotees know these prayers, because there is no singing and chanting within the temple, I request that you kindly repeat these prayers in your mind, but not perhaps out aloud. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Hayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradhayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tushe Namaha Manchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So many of the devotees in the audience have heard about Mathura or Vrindavan. Most of us come from India, and so these names are very familiar. We grow up hearing these names. For those who do not come from the Indian background, Vrindavan is commonly understood. If you look up Vrindavan on Google Maps or something, you will note it as being a small city or a small village, perhaps a few hundred miles away from Delhi. It's roughly about a 2-hour drive, 2.5-hour drive away from Delhi. And so people think it's like one of those holy places. Just like, for example, Christians have a particular place that they go to. Like, for example, a lot of the Franciscan monks go to Assisi, or a lot of the Muslims go to Mecca. They understand that Hindus also, it's just another faith, it's another city, it's another village. And people go there for inspiration, to get in touch with certain spiritual practices, and they come back. That is their understanding of what Vrindavan is. Of course, what is more popular, typically when you speak about spirituality in India, are places like Haridwar or Rishikesh or Rameshwar. These places are still more prominent. Or if people come from particular parts of India, then there are yet other pastime places which are dear to devotees' hearts, like Srirangam for those who are in South India, or Tirupati is another famous one, or Pandharpur for those who come from the Maharashtrian region, or Srinadvar. Such places exist, and the devotees, according to the background and culture they come from, hold these pastime places very dear. So it is really interesting then when our acharyas speak about taking shelter of Krishna and speak about developing the highest quality of love for Krishna. They refer to taking shelter of Vrindavan or taking shelter of Mathura. We want to understand why is it that our acharyas are so specific. Because they can say, and legitimately say, take shelter of Tirupati, or take shelter of Srirangam, or take shelter of Srinadvar. These are our holy places. But rather than asking us to take shelter in these places, they specifically ask us to take shelter of Mathura and Vrindavan. To understand this point, it is important to understand the specific focus of the kind of relationship with the Lord we are trying to establish. See, there are many kinds of people in this world, and everybody has a certain level of understanding of the reality that they're dealing with and a certain type of relationship with the Lord. Typically, there are 5 levels that are described. At the lowest level is what you would call people who understand that everything is composed of energy, like of forces. Like, for example, the reason this pillar is standing up in a particular place is because there are certain laws of construction or structural engineering that apply. You follow those laws, you get a particular result. And their understanding is, if we understand these laws of nature, we can use these laws of nature to get what we want to get. You see, this is the principal focus of most academic study that we have. Let us find out how the body is working, and let us use this knowledge to try and get the best outcome for us to enjoy life. They often go into the realm of interfering with natural processes or natural energies. There is no recognition here of a controller behind these energies. They are focused on simply dealing with the energy and how the energy interacts with each other. You see this most often in physics, for example, where they're trying to reduce all of reality to a description of 4 fundamental forces. And that for them is everything. But higher than these classes, and this is the 4th level, so we spoke about the 5th level. The 4th level is people who recognize the presence of energy, but they recognize it in such a way that they don't want to use it to break it or to see it or try to manipulate it. They try and work with it. So for example, those who practice Reiki or those who practice different kinds of natural therapies, they recognize the presence of energies of the Lord without recognizing the Lord directly. And they try and harmonize themselves with those energies. Usually you will find that a lot of your white tantrics or your Christian evangelists or even healers in India, they work a lot at this level of consciousness. Both these levels who are dealing with energy, one to try to manipulate it and the other one to try and work with it, they do not even recognize that there is a controller behind the energy. At the 3rd level are people who begin to recognize that behind every type of phenomena in this world, there is some kind of controller. You see this consciousness even in Aboriginals. For example, they refer to a tree spirit or a river spirit. Or you will find that some people, they have a sense of there is some controller for some elements, and they worship those elements. In India, of course, this is characterized by the worship of many devatas. For rain, there is Indra. For health, there is Surya. For good children, there is Shiva. For a good wife, there's Parvati. Like this, of a removal of obstacles, there's Ganesh. And people recognize that different facets of life has a controller. There's not just the energy, there has to be a person, an energetic person who controls the energy. And by praying to that energetic person, one can get the results one wants from the energy. All of these levels still deal with the body and the mind. The 3rd level is higher because they recognize that there is somebody that one is accountable to or one has to report to in order to get what we want. But above this is an understanding that we are not just the body. See, the first 3 levels, they achieve results within this world. The 3rd level, usually they go to Swarga and enjoy life there. But higher than that are those who recognize, yes, there are controllers behind this energy, but underlying all of this manipulation of matter, there is a fundamental spiritual energy. I am a spirit spark, and even the devatas, or even the individuals who are taking care of each of these facets of nature, they are also individual spirit sparks. When such a practitioner recognizes this, please take it. When a practitioner recognizes this, when a practitioner recognizes this, they begin to go beyond just dealing with material energy, but they look at that which is eternal, that which does not change, that which does not disintegrate with time. These individuals begin to worship the Supreme Lord. Because even the devatas, their position comes and goes, and they recognize that. They recognize that behind every one of these individuals, there is some Supreme Lord whom they have to focus on and worship. They don't have a very good understanding of who the Lord is, but they understand that there is a Supreme Controller, and by worshiping Him, one can awaken one's spiritual nature completely. He is the Supreme Spirit, and by connecting with that Supreme Spirit, one's original spiritual nature wakes up. Often you will see this in the mystic traditions of many of the Western religions. If you look at, for example, the Kabbalistic tradition in Judaism, or certain select sects of Islam, or even the more mystic traditions in Christianity, there is an understanding of approaching that Supreme Spirit in some way. For example, the Vatican Church, there is a picture of a devotee or a saint, and he is observing a blast of light coming, and he's not able to tolerate that light, and he's standing back like this, unable to bear the presence of the Supreme Spirit. So this is the first time that an individual recognizes the presence of the Supreme Lord. But beyond this, there's another understanding. And the Vedic scriptures speak of, if we ourselves are a person, then our personality, the variety that we have and the variety that we seek to experience, it comes from somewhere. Just like, for example, if I go to a bank, I have to withdraw a certain amount of money. But I can't withdraw ice cream because the bank doesn't have ice cream. Similarly, we have so many different varieties of personality, so many different types of tastes that we experience. For example, in our interactions, we have friendship. We sometimes fight with each other, and we experience, like over a sporting match, for example, and we experience the taste of competition, or we experience the pleasure of debate amongst each other. Or in terms of relationships, we have relationships with our parents, our spouse, our children. It's a complete experience. And that complete experience, this practitioner realizes, it comes from somewhere. Yes, what I'm experiencing now is of this world, but actually this world is simply coming from that Supreme Spirit, of whom I don't know very much. So at the highest level is the practitioner who understands that the Lord is not just like a supreme spiritual being, but He is a person. He is a person who has a personality. And from Him comes every variety of experience. This person understands that everything I'm looking for in this world actually comes from that Supreme Spirit. The Bhagavad Gita speaks of it in this way. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate. Vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. When one understands that the strength of this pillar, it's Krishna. The softness and comfort of the seat, that is Krishna. And the pleasure that I'm seeking, if I like boxing, if I'm observing, their fierce competition or their enormous energy, that is Krishna's potency. And all of these things can be found in that Supreme Lord. When somebody understands this, they stop trying to seek for variety in this world, but go to the source of that variety and approach Krishna to experience that variegated relationship with Him directly. And this is the highest level of consciousness that someone can deal with in terms of a relationship with the Lord. This understanding is actually the beginning of spiritual life. Because even the Lord Himself, His name is Akhila Rasamrita Murti in the scriptures. What this name means is somebody who's capable of experiencing and engaging in all varieties of relationships that one can possibly imagine. The Supreme Lord is also the supreme enjoyer. We are small enjoyers, and we have a certain capacity for enjoyment. But the Supreme Lord, who is the source of our desire for enjoyment, who is the source behind our capacity for enjoyment, is an unlimited enjoyer. And He enjoys varieties of relationships with all the living entities. This understanding of the Supreme Lord is the beginning of real spiritual life, because the spirit soul in eternity manifests a particular kind of service that they can engage in relationship with the Lord. Most of us have heard of personalities like Nanda Maharaj, or Yashoda, or Devaki, or Hanuman, or Krishna. Here are examples of individual souls who have manifested a full relationship with the Lord in a particular kind of way. Mother Yashoda treats Krishna just like a son. Arjuna treats Krishna like a friend, and in the Bhagavad Gita he says, we used to sleep on the same bed together, we used to eat from the same plate, we used to laugh and joke, and when you would say something, I would say, my dear friend, you're surely joking because you can't be truthful in what you're saying right now. And they would lightly criticize or sarcastically remark about each other in that way. And these full varieties of relationships Krishna has with many unlimited living entities. So the spiritual world then which is the realm of those who are at this highest level of consciousness, is filled with Krishna and his unlimited pastimes, according to the type of relationship a devotee wants with him. It is stated that there are 5 principal relationships. One is that of neutrality. This means, like for example, suppose there's a movie star, and we seem to have some kind of relationship with them, even though they may not fully know us or may not even be aware of us fully. But there's a neutral sense of, there's an appreciation for that individual from a little bit of a distance. That is known as Shantaras. So this is the kind of relationship that the trees, the cows, the deer, and the other paraphernalia have with Krishna. Everything in the spiritual world is completely conscious. More intimate than this kind of relationship is dasya. So this is exemplified by devotees like Hanuman, who have this complete mood of service towards the Lord. When this mood of service intensifies and one wants to expand that mood of service, then you have friends like Subhala or Arjun Sakha, who engage with Krishna at a very friendly level, and they're able to serve him much more intimately. But when that friendship increases further to the extent that one wants to take care of Krishna, then one has Vatsalya, the mood of loving Krishna as a father or mother, in general as a parent. Then you have Devaki, Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda, Vasudev, and many of the elders of both Mathura, Dwaraka, Vrindavan, who take care of Krishna. Or even in Ayodhya, like Kaushalya, Sumitra, they have these maternal feelings towards Sri Ramachandra. And then when that feeling of friendship, when that feeling of wanting to take care of the individual, it increases further and the intimacy becomes stronger, then the relationship with Krishna becomes of the 5th kind, which is the conjugal relationship with Krishna. Because a lover or one's wife or husband, there is a sense of being a friend, there's a sense of being, someone who cares for the other individual and looks after that individual, and there's also a unique component of being a very intimate spouse or a lover. And all these 5 varieties Krishna experiences completely. Now, even amongst the spiritual world, there are distinctions in how different devotees express these relationships with Krishna. For example, in Ayodhya, who are Krishna's parents? Does anybody know? Who are Krishna's parents in Ayodhya? Dashratha, Kaushalya, and of course he has like the 2 other mothers, Kaikeyi and Sumitra. Okay, who is his wife? Mother Sita. Who are his servants? Sugriva and Hanuman are the typical individuals referenced here. Of course, he has many other servants also. And who are his closest friends? Well, Lakshman is in the mood of being a servant also. But it's an interesting thing. But the point is that Sri Ramachandra has those full varieties of relationships. Now you go to someone like, for example, Vamandev. Who is Vamandev's mother and father? Aditi Kashyapa. Does he, in the pastimes that we know of, does he have a wife? No, he's born as a Brahmana brahmachari, right? He's born as a brahmachari. He doesn't seem to have a wife. So that means he doesn't have children either. He doesn't seem to have that. We hear a limited proportion of his pastimes. Now, if we go to Lord Nrsingadev, who is his wife? Lord Nrsingadev? Lakshmi, yes. And parents? Not self-manifest, in the sense that he appears apparently without a mother and father. And so, any apparent children? He has the feeling of being a father to Sri Prahlad and many other servants, for example. But again, you see that there's a difference in the variety of relationships the Lord has in another form. Now let us examine Krishna. Who are his parents? Vasudev, Devaki, or in Vrindavan, Nanda, Yashoda. Who are his friends? Sudama and Subala, Arjuna, Madhumangal. But you can recount many more friends of Krishna, right? Than for Sri Ramachandra or Lord Nrsingadev. You don't see Lord Nrsingadev playing catch, for example, with friends. Because Lord Nrsingadev doesn't manifest those variety of pastimes. And who are Krishna's closest like girlfriends or consorts? Srimati Radharani, Rukmini. You know how many wives he has in Dwaraka? 100? Someone say 100? 1,000? 16,108. The funny thing is not that Krishna has so many wives. The funny thing is that Krishna has limited himself to 16,108 wives. Because he's unlimited. With each of those 16,108 wives, he was simultaneously present with all of them at the same time and enjoying a variety of pastimes. But already we can see that Krishna in some sense is special because the variety of relationships that he expands and manifests is already more than in any other incarnation of the Lord. Now you look at what is the difference between Dwaraka or Mathura and Vrindavan. What are the obvious differences? In Dwaraka, how many wives does Krishna have? 16,108. In Vrindavan, how many devotees have a relationship of conjugal affection with Krishna? Millions and millions and billions of individual gopis. Who feels like parental affection for Krishna? Who wants to take care of him? Of course, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, but every other elderly gopi or gopa in Vrindavan. Who feels that affection of friendship towards Krishna? Practically all the young gopas. I mean, there are some elderly gopas who have a mixture of friendship and a feeling of like brotherly paternal affection. Then you have equals, and then you have those younger friends who are a little bit more like friends and also assistants, like servants. That is their mood. But you see already that in Vrindavan, there is a completely whole variety of relationships experienced. Now here is the other special thing about Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, whose opinion do you think rules? Krishna's opinion rules? Does anybody else have an opinion on the subject? I'll give you one pastime. So, has everybody heard about the Aghasura Lila? This I think is quite common. So what had happened was that Kamsa had sent a demon who was in the form of a snake. Now, he had opened his mouth out almost like 20 miles. So it looked like a huge mountain cave. Of course, the breath smelled very fishy. It smelled like a cave that nobody had gone into for a very long time. Now, the cowherd boys were surprised because they've been to the forest all the time. And suddenly they see this mountain here that they'd never seen before. So they were wondering, there's something fishy here. And also the breath smells a bit fishy. This feels like it's not quite a mountain. But they just knew one thing, that Krishna is here, he will protect us, we want to have fun. So whatever happens is up to Krishna, we want to have fun, we want to see Krishna do something wonderful. And so they were going in. Do you think Krishna knew that Aghasura was a snake, or he did not know? He knew. So do you think that he voluntarily sent his friends inside so that they could be in danger? So that he could show that he was a hero? Was that what Krishna was doing? Krishna wanted to stop them. He was trying to say, stop, 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 stop. And they were saying, bye, bye, come if you want to. And they just went in. Krishna wanted to stop them, and he could not stop them. Whose opinion here rules? It's the devotees. It is their love for him is so extraordinary that Krishna becomes bound up by their desires. They wanted to experience Krishna in that way. They wanted to experience Krishna's protection and see something wonderful from Krishna. Krishna did not want to put them in danger. But he was forced to he was trying to do something, he couldn't move. They went inside. And Krishna was like, he himself was amazed that this is the potency of my devotees' love. That their desire is overruling my own desire. Their desire is causing my pleasure potency to arrange this Leela in such a way that I can't do a thing. And the devotees went inside, and of course Krishna was forced to come and save them. Another example. When Krishna was being tied by Mother Yashoda, do you think Krishna wanted to be tied? What did Krishna actually want? So he was taking Mother Yashoda's breast milk. Mother Yashoda saw that the milk that she'd put on the stove was boiling over. And remember, every particle in Vrindavan is conscious. So the milk was also a devotee who was placed there for Krishna's service. And that milk was thinking, Krishna will be satisfied with Mother Yashoda's milk. There is no need for me to live anymore. And he was boiling over and falling in the fire to commit suicide. And Mother Yashoda saw that another devotee was in distress. She put even Krishna down and ran towards the milk. Do you think Krishna liked that? Whose opinion here rules? The devotee's desire or Krishna's desire? This never happens in Mathura. This never happens in Dwaraka. It happens specifically in Vrindavan. And Mother Yashoda got up, ran, turned off the stove. Of course, I doubt that it was this kind of stove, but somehow she turned off the stove. But after she turned off the stove, Krishna had suddenly disappeared. And we know the pastime. Krishna thought, Mother Yashoda has put me down. I will make sure that she never ever does this again. I will show her. And he went around with a stick, breaking open pots and feeding. But he was looking like this behind Mother Yashoda, for Mother Yashoda. Whose opinion here matters? Krishna's opinion or Mother Yashoda's opinion? If you have an owner of a company, you think that he can just sit in a room and do whatever he likes, right? He can go onto his laptop, he can look up whatever he likes, he can waste as much time as he likes. There's nobody who's there to question him. Whose abode is Vrindavan? Technically we say it's Krishna's abode, right? So Krishna was looking behind his shoulder. Why? He was afraid that Mother Yashoda would come and catch him doing something wrong. It was Mother Yashoda's opinion that mattered there. Mother Yashoda's, he was afraid of Mother Yashoda. That Supreme Lord who is the owner of everything in this world, by whose name fear itself runs away, was afraid of Mother Yashoda. This is Vrindavan. And this is completely extraordinary. This never happens outside of Vrindavan. And when Mother Yashoda came, Krishna was so afraid that he was pretending to cry so that Mother Yashoda would not hit him. And seeing how afraid he was, like I don't know if any of you have seen young children when they're afraid or they're crying, but at some point they cry so much that their breath seems to stick in their throat. Has anybody experienced this? You go, they can't even cry properly. And Krishna was demonstrating that level of fear. And Mother Yashoda saw this. What is capable of causing the Supreme Lord this kind of fear? And she saw this, and she put her stick down. But she wanted to teach him a lesson. So she took a rope, and she began to tie Krishna. Do you think Krishna wanted to be tied? Let's have this as a wonderful pastime. Do you think he wanted to be tied? No. He wanted to be left free, and that's why initially all the ropes were falling short. But Mother Yashoda kept trying to tie the ropes. And eventually, Krishna saw, she was sweating like this. And in running to catch Krishna, her hair had become loose, the flowers in her hair had fallen down, her sari she was sweating profusely. Her sari had become loose, her ornaments were like scattered, and she was like in a state of fluster. But she was smiling, thinking, here goes Krishna doing something wonderful again. But she was determined. And she was thinking, if I do not discipline my son now, if I do not discipline him now, then he will grow up and he will become mischievous. How will he get married? How will he become settled in life? People will speak ill of him. I need to discipline him now. And that intention of Mother Yashoda to enforce her will caused Krishna has several varieties of energies. He has an energy called Ichcha Shakti. Ichcha Shakti means that it is Krishna's personal will. And it allows anything to happen just by Krishna desiring it. So Krishna's Ichcha Shakti had caused the ropes to kind of become too short, even if it was all the rope in Vrindavan. It all become the rope to become, cause the rope to become short. But Krishna has another energy, and that's called the Kripa Shakti. The essence of the Kripa Shakti is bhakti, because it invokes Krishna's mercy. And Krishna's Kripa Shakti, it rose to the fore, and it overrode the presence of the Ichcha Shakti. It is the principle of Krishna's energies. And in Vrindavan, Krishna's Kripa Shakti always overrides his Ichcha Shakti. This never happens outside of Vrindavan. And seeing Mother Yashoda's extreme endeavor, Krishna said, okay. And he was tied. And then he was crying. Mother Yashoda, then she went inside to complete her household work for Krishna's pleasure. And then as soon as Mother Yashoda went, his tears stopped. And then he was laughing and playing with his friends. Then Balaram came. And he said, who has tied you like this? And Krishna's, and like, who has tied you like this? Get that person, I will thrash him. Bada bhai to hai na, like elder brother. And Krishna said, Mother Yashoda. And Balaram was like stopping like this for a second. Then he started to say, why are you always naughty like this? Can't you behave properly? Why do you have to have Mother Yashoda chastise you all the time? But Mother Yashoda's love is so strong that not even Krishna and Balaram can oppose it. They become like small children in her hands. I don't know if you've had this experience, but on the roads of India once, like an elderly beggar was seen. This beggar was maybe 60 years old. He had his elderly mother sitting next to him, and she must have been over 80, maybe 90 years old. And with her trembling hands, she was feeding the 60-year-old man. Now, in what country would 60 years old be considered young? It never is. But in the face of the love of his mother, he forgot his own understanding that of his age, of his own maturity. And in her hands, in his mother's hands, his consciousness shrunk to that of a small boy. And he was just eating nicely, as if he was just a young boy in his mother's hands. This is what happens to Krishna's consciousness when he's in Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, the love of the devotees is so great that when they're trying to feed him, when they're trying to play with him, he becomes so caught up in their love that knowledge of his own supremacy recedes far, far back into the background. Everybody in Vrindavan is aware that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. But the sweetness of the pastimes, the intimacy of those pastimes, causes that knowledge to fade far, far into the background. Anybody who's been to Vrindavan now, and Vrindavan has changed significantly over the last 20, 30 years. Some of the devotees in the audience, both present here and online, may have gone to Vrindavan 20, 30, 40 years ago. At that time, Vrindavan was not so much the commercial area it has tended to become now. You will see in Vrindavan that many individuals from Agra, from Delhi come as businessmen, and they take over many of the parts of Vrindavan. Particularly in the Raman Reddy area, they have set up many hotels, they have set up many other shops, and they sell many goods. They're not Brijvasis selling things. They're from Agra and Delhi, typically, making money off the many tourists and many devotees who come there to experience Krishna's pastimes. And if you go to Raman Reddy, it feels like a small city or like a congested town. You will constantly hear the honking of motorbikes. You will hear the honking of the cars. You may see open sewages and gutters. And people have this superficial view of what Vrindavan is. But actual Vrindavan is that place where Krishna feels completely at home. where Krishna is with his most trusted associates, and they control him just like a person would control a puppet. The elderly gopis of Vrindavan, they would say, Krishna, if you dance for us, we will give you some sweets. And then Krishna will begin to dance just like this to get that one sweet. He craves that one sweet from the elderly gopis. Or the peacocks of Vrindavan, they come to Krishna and say, we want to dance. Please, can you play your flute so that we can dance to this music? And then Krishna will oblige, and he will, just like, for example, like a musician will come and perform for like a in front of an audience. So Krishna will come and he will perform, or more precisely, like musicians will come and perform before the king. Krishna will come and he will play his flute in front of the peacocks. And all the peacocks will have a wonderful time, like just dancing around, twirling and hopping. And at the end of that performance, out of gratitude, they take off their tail feathers and they give it to Krishna. Krishna takes the tail feathers and out of deep gratitude, he places it on his head. This is why Krishna wears a peacock feather. What rules Vrindavan is the devotee's love for Krishna. And it binds Krishna. It is said, Vrindavanam parityaja padam ekam na gacchati. Krishna never takes one step out of Vrindavan. When Krishna himself, as Shyam Sundar Krishna, manifests in any one of our hearts, or in any devotee's heart, that heart is first made into Vrindavan, and Krishna manifests himself there. Because ultimately, Vrindavan is not accessed simply by traveling a few hundred miles from Delhi to Vrindavan. Vrindavan is accessed by a state of consciousness. And one can be living in Vrindavan, but if one, like the Agrawalas or the Delhi individuals, is there to make money, one will not actually experience Vrindavan. It is said that surrounding Vrindavan there is a small covering that one cannot easily penetrate. But it's only a very thin covering. In Sydney, the covering is thick like a lead wall. But in Vrindavan, the covering is very, very thin. It's almost like you have a door and there's a curtain there, and you can feel the pleasant breezes coming that give us some hint of Krishna's sweetness. It's like he's just there. And every so often, for those who stay in Vrindavan, they have the experience that these curtains part slightly, and they actually experience that full sweetness of Krishna's presence. Those who are exalted saints and devotees, when they're in Vrindavan with the mood of the original residents of Vrindavan, this mood of complete selfless service to Krishna, with love that is so great that it is capable of even binding Krishna, for them, even now, they experience that original Vrindavan. The original Vrindavan that they see is explained in the Brahma Samhita. Chintamani prakara sadma sukalpa vriksha laksha vriteshu surabhira vipalayantam lakshmi saharsra shata sambrama sevyamanam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Every grain of sand in Vrindavan is like a Chintamani stone. There are so many millions and millions of cows that the milk coming from their udder keeps the soil moist. And the sand is so soft that it practically feels like a cushion when you're walking on it. And Vrindavan is so special that wherever Krishna stands, his personal footprint is never touched by any other creature in Vrindavan, because it's like a permanent mark on the dust of Vrindavan. And it's very soft dust. It makes an imprint there. And there are hundreds and hundreds and thousands and lakhs of gopis who are like Lakshmis who engage in his service. This is the picture of Vrindavan. More recently, there's another stanza that describes what Vrindavan is like. Kujat kokila hamsa sara sagana tirne mayura kule nana ratna nibhaga mula vitapa Shri Yukta Vrindavane. That the land is filled with all varieties of like swans and peacocks, all of them just dancing. And Vrindavan, it's Sri Yukta Vrindavan. Vrindavan is filled with these opulences. There are kalpa-vriksha trees, desire-fulfilling trees. Every tree in Vrindavan is a desire-fulfilling tree. This vision of Vrindavan belongs to saints who are actually able to see Vrindavan really. So the topic of this class was Mathura Vasa. And the first question we asked was, why are we taking shelter of Mathura? Well, for all of us, we are trying to build a relationship with the Lord. And it is important for us to know what is the highest kind of relationship one can build with the Lord. One can deal with just material energy, or just the energy. One can deal with the controllers of that energy, or deal with the Supreme Spirit in a distant way. But when one starts to deal with that Supreme Lord as a person, and starts to deal with a level of intimacy that is so strong, that practically speaking, that love controls Krishna directly. If one is aspiring to develop this kind of love, then one has to take shelter of Vrindavan, which is the place where the eternal associates of Krishna, who have this kind of love, are eternally present. And so Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu says that residence in Mathura, or the Mathura district, more precisely in Vrindavan, is essential for those who want to develop this kind of intimate, loving relationship with Krishna. And because of the nature of the intimacy, it is considered to be the very, very highest of all places. Every other dham, whether it be Sri Rangam, Tirupati, every other dham you can think of, is included in that space of Vrindavan. The space of Vrindavan is not limited by its geography. I think sometimes it is described as 84 square miles or 117 square miles. I don't remember the exact figure. 84 kroshas, I think, is the description. The exact square miles, Prabhu? 170, whatever it might be. Certain number of 100 square miles or so. But that square perimeter of Vrindavan is not the limit of Vrindavan, because it is the manifestation of the original Vrindavan of the spiritual world. The consciousness that allows one to transit that very thin curtain layer that surrounds Vrindavan and actually experience Krishna's presence is the consciousness of selfless service. And this is illustrated by two very prominent instances in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. The first one is when Uddhava, Krishna had left Vrindavan, and Uddhava was coming back. Now Krishna had sent Uddhava to Vrindavan with a service. He told Uddhava, my parents, my friends, especially the cowherd girls, they're crying in separation from me. They're not able, they're just living moment to moment thinking I will come back to them. That's the only thing that's keeping them alive. Otherwise, the moment Krishna left, they would all have left also, because they have no reason to live other than pleasing Krishna. But Krishna had made them a promise. I will come back very soon. And that promise was something they kept in their heart all the years that Krishna was away. And thinking of this promise, they thought, if we leave now, if we give up our bodies, then how will Krishna feel when he comes back? Won't he feel bad? Thinking in this way, they sustained their lives. And Krishna said, I know what their state is. Even though they're apparently living, it actually feels like they're dead, because they're practically not alive. I'm their very life. And in my absence, they don't know how to function. Please go and revive them with my message. They will welcome you. They will see you as like me directly. They will welcome you in that way. And by hearing from you, they will feel relieved. Please go to Vrindavan. When Uddhava went to Vrindavan, he first met Nanda and Yashoda, and he was trying to console them. But to his surprise, he found that in trying to console them, he was like, you remember Krishna in your separation much more intensely than I'm able to remember him. And what's amazing is that through your intensity of separation, you are actually with Krishna at every moment. Krishna is absolute. Whether one is separated from him or whether one is with him, If one remembers Krishna in separation, one experiences Krishna's presence completely, even more completely, in fact, than when one is with Krishna personally. And he was thinking, in your separation from Krishna, you are more with Krishna than even I am, who am with Krishna on a day-to-day basis. He ended up telling them, I came here to stop you from crying, but I can only say that your tears of love for Krishna are so great that Krishna is not able to leave you. Krishna is actually with you right now. And nobody else can see it apparently. Vrindavan appeared at that time to be desolate. But I can see by the vision I'm receiving. I can see, it's like I can see two Vrindavans. I can see one Vrindavan which from the external surface appears to be desolate, where Krishna is not present. But I can see another Vrindavan where Krishna has never left. And those very same pastimes are going on and on and on, over and over again. So all I can say is, please keep crying. I came here to stop you from crying, but I don't do that. Please keep crying. And I pray that I can also cry like you're crying. And then he went to the gopis. And that sense of how much they remembered Krishna was going, and he was trying to tell them, remember Krishna is in the core of your heart. They said our problem is not that we can't remember Krishna, the problem is that we can't forget him. And that is causing us pain. But in seeing their intensity of separation and seeing that they were with Krishna even more by virtue of that intense separation, he came back from Vrindavan understanding, Krishna sent me there with a mood of service. He sent me there with a service, but his actual intention was for me to experience the love of Vrindavan, for me to grow personally, and then for me to bring that message back into Mathura and share what the love of the residents of Vrindavan actually is, so that others come to understand the real glory of Vrindavan. But the reason Uddhava was granted access to Vrindavan was that he went with service. The result was that he was the one benefited. But it was that mood of service that allowed him to perceive Vrindavan, or it was because of that mood of service that Krishna revealed Vrindavan to him. The same thing happened with Akrura. When Akrura was entering Vrindavan, he was seeing, and sometimes when we take a flight to Delhi and then take a train, or not a train but a bus or a car to Vrindavan, it just happens so quickly that by the time we enter Vrindavan, we are still thinking about the many things we've left behind. But when we actually enter Vrindavan, we take a few days to become acclimatized and start moving with the routine and the sweetness of Vrindavan. But Akrura, he was coming in on a chariot given by Kamsa, and his mood was exclusively focused in remembering Krishna's names, form, qualities, and pastimes. And he was observing Krishna's footprints. He was remembering some of Krishna's pastimes that he had heard about sitting in Mathura. And it was that remembrance of Krishna and constantly hearing and chanting about him that allowed him to enter Vrindavan and actually see what Vrindavan was. So these two instances are revealed in the 10th canto. That Vrindavan, which is the highest place of pastimes of the Lord, is therefore, we have spoken about what it means to take shelter of Vrindavan. To take shelter of Vrindavan means to take shelter of a devotee who has the mood of Vrindavan. And under their guidance, to enter Vrindavan with a mood of service, constantly hearing and chanting Krishna's names. If one resides in Vrindavan with this consciousness, then the sweetness of Vrindavan begins to overwhelm oneself. I was in Vrindavan in 2014, and I was fortunate enough to spend 3 months there serving my spiritual master. When I was there serving my spiritual master, initially the services were so hectic. I'd come from Pune, and I had just come to Vrindavan, but the services were so hectic, and we were staying next to Govardhan. And staying next to Govardhan, the services were so hectic that I barely was conscious of my surroundings. I had to collect, deliver, serve, clean for 3 times of prasadam, washing clothes, folding or ironing them, and also other services that I was allocated. I barely had time. But funnily enough, what I noticed was that after a week of being there was this sweetness that had entered the heart, a feeling of completely being sheltered, a feeling of deep affection for Govardhan, feeling of deep affection for Krishna and Vrindavan that had entered the heart. And it just happened without my even consciously trying to do anything about it. But this was because I was in Vrindavan just for the purpose of service. When we enter Vrindavan to try to enjoy Vrindavan or even experience Vrindavan, we will miss the point, because Vrindavan is not accessed with that consciousness. If somebody is there, particularly under the guidance of their spiritual master, how many of us have seen individuals buy like flats in Vrindavan? Has anybody seen this? There's a trend right now because of the constructions going on there for people to buy a flat and decide to spend like a week or a month or 2 months or whatever time it is in Vrindavan. But they go back, they come, and it's not clear what they're getting. They don't understand themselves what they're getting. But if one goes particularly at a time to associate with the sadhus there, to take shelter of the Vaishnavas there, to hear Krishna Katha from them, and entering with that mood of service, I'm coming here to hear, or I'm coming here to serve. There's a service I'm doing here. And one is conscious of constantly chanting Krishna's names, then one will actually experience a sweetness that is coming through that curtain. I'll share one more example. I just finished my 12th standard, and I was going to Vrindavan for the first time. I was going with my cousins. When we went to Vrindavan, of course, this is the first time I was there, and I was just looking around, and I wasn't. I knew that Vrindavan was special. I didn't know why it was special. My cousins said, "Let's play cards," because we just checked into a hotel. Our parents were doing different things, and I started playing cards with them. I remember the feeling I had after I finished that game. I was like, "What the hell am I doing? Why am I here?" Because those who are frivolous with their time in Vrindavan, who think they can just casually go to restaurants, or who can casually go to Loy Bazaar, which is a shopping mall in Vrindavan, and just wander around aimlessly, they will feel like there's something that is... They will not see Vrindavan. They will just see a small congested town overfilled with motorcycles and cars and open sewages and gutters. That's all they will see. But those who enter with a mood of service, even in the most congested part of Vrindavan, they would experience the sweetness of Krishna's presence and the intimacy of the relationship that devotees have with Krishna and Vrindavan. This is the mood of taking shelter of Vrindavan as revealed by our great acharyas. I'll stop here. If anybody has any comments or questions or thoughts, they can share it. All right. So we will continue with the Sunday Feast program. At 7 o'clock we will have Gaur Arati. So please do stay for that Arati. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Hare Krishna. Just a quick couple of announcements. Stand over here. Okay, so thank you. We are celebrating the 50th anniversary of Shri Radha Gopinath's installation in Sydney. So we're celebrating this festival from the 22nd of May to the 26th. You can check our website and Facebook for all the details. It's a 5-day festival. We'll be having kirtan on the first 2 days. On the third day, we'll be having glorification of Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya. And then after that, we'll have Nishinga Chaturthi, the appearance day of Lord Nishingadev. There we'll be having the Mahayagya. and a Pushpa Abhishek for Radha Gopinath. And then on the 26th, that's the actual day of the installation. 50 years ago, Srila Prabhupada brought Sri Sri Radha Gopinath here to Sydney for our benefit so that we can worship and serve them and also please them so that we may be able to engage in our service once again. So 26th is when we're going to have a Maha Abhishek and Maha Arti in the evening. Times and details, you'll find out details as you go out. You'll find it on the board there, otherwise you can check our website and Facebook pages. Along with the festivities is usually also a lot of opportunities to sponsor items. So because it is the 50th anniversary, we'll be having different things for Radha Gopinath to be offered new. So we'll have new arti sets, we'll be having new boga plates, decorations, flower garlands, dress, and so many other things there. So you can check the flyer on the table on the way out, just next to the prasadam, so you can find out more details about that. And we're also asking everyone who have some time during these 5 days, 22nd to the 26th, to please come and volunteer. So there'll be a lot of services to be done around here, and you can always come in and offer some help. It'll be greatly appreciated. So if you're available any of those days, please do come and register your name, number, email to the book table, so you can talk to the Mataji behind the table there. Final announcement is that on the 23rd, we'll be having glorification of Srila Prabhupada, and that particular day we're going to be having opportunity for everyone to come forward and offer their prayers or glorification of Srila Prabhupada, so that we further remember Srila Prabhupada and also have the opportunity to purify ourselves by hearing his glories. So on the 23rd, we request everyone who are able to, you can write an offering or a prayer or a glorification of Srila Prabhupada, and you can send that to offerings at iskon.com.au. That's OFFERINGS at iskon.com.au. You can do the same for the 26th. So on the 26th is Radha Gopinath's installation date. That's the day we're actually celebrating. And you can offer your prayers, glorifications, any heartfelt words of appreciation. You can write them to the email offerings@iskon.com.au, and they'll be read out by the devotees in the evening. So if you are offering on the 23rd, then the devotees will be reading your offering later in the evening, and on the 26th also in the evening time. So please do come. The festival starts on the 22nd and ends on the 26th, so everyone's invited. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.